Digimon is one of my favorite media franchises, basically of all time. There's a lot of ways to enjoy it, from the original inception with the Tamagotchis, the anime, the manga, the comics, the novels, the TCG, and of course, the video games. One of my favorite hobbies of all time, besides browsing image boards for 3 hours to send to a bunch of Discord server. Well, nobody will give a shit, but I do enjoy the pretty art. There's a lot to Digimon, and there's a lot that I like about each different media format it makes, but there's what I think a pretty big flaw into every game that it made. Yes, even this one. That makes me always a little hesitant to recommend to someone who really wants to experience the digital world in all of its glory through the video games. Because honestly, my favorite Digimon representation of all time is the TCG bar none, and it is not even close. I know it sounds a little stupid from a guy talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! All the time from all my recent video and all of my Monday streams at 1 p.m. EST that are just Yu-Gi-Oh! Follow me on Twitch, by the way, at Underman14, but there's a reason. The problems the game have is this fucking number. What the fuck is this? Listen, I get how insane of a complaint that is, but I feel like the games could be a lot better about this, outside of logistical and monetary reasons that I'm really not savvy enough to know enough about. But I feel like Bandai could help in that regard sometimes, but the best we have in terms of what the most Digimon is represented into a single game is Digimon World Dawn and Dusk, which has around 400, and it came out in 2007, and we somehow have not progressed past that point. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Cyber Sleuth, and I will always recommend it to people who wants to try and dive into Digimon. The story's great, the gameplay's fantastic, and the way you do Digivolution is quite unique compared to something like Pokemon. But it still only have around 350 Digimon out of 1,500 total creatures. Now, some of that is the age of Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. It did come out in 2015, so the total number of Digimon at the time was around 1,000, which is a better ratio, but it still kind of sucks to always point towards something that's currently 10 years old at the time of recording, instead of something more new and fresh. That's why I love the TCG so much. While it doesn't have absolutely everything, it is easier to include some of the new stuff over time, or even some of the old stuff that hasn't been represented yet. But it does give new fans or someone wanting to get into the franchise tons of options to choose from, and some decent place to start with something like starter decks, or even decks that are built out of a single box like Three Musketeer was back in EX7. It does have certain limits, obviously, like some of the cards are just bad and unplayable, and you can't really use them at all. Like, I'm sorry, Bencho Lilymon, you are way cooler than what that dogshit fucking text box says. Still, the TCG is the only current way to get excited about new Digimon dropping. Like, I fucking personally love the Liberator Digimon. They're really cool, and I love them so much, and I haven't had this feeling in a long time where my favorite little creatures are always changing this fast. It's the best way to experience a ton of the creatures and how unique the evolving mechanic of Digimon is, compared to, yes, the obvious Pokemon. I know they're nothing alike in origins. It is 2025, so most people are going to compare every single monster taming franchise that comes out to Pokemon. There's a good reason for that. It is the biggest media franchise of all time. It's the only Pokemon comparison I want to make, so please don't click off yet. I'm gonna make this as quick as possible. So Dexit happened, and from what I'm told, about 200 of the 1,000 Pokemon are unable to be transferred to the newest mainline game. But regardless if your favorite is included or not, there is a bunch of new Pokemons that are added for you to find new favorites in and build new bonds with new Pokemon, rather than always going for the same thing. It's always been kind of the main feature of Pokemon mainline games to show you a lot of new guys for your new likes, and still have around 3/4 of the decks being able to be transferred if you do want to always pick up some of your old favorites, which is a good ratio. Digimon game admittedly cannot add a lot of new mons technically. They have for a few, but for the most part, Digimons are created not for the games, but over time for the new media they make, like Digivice anime and so on. So we can't exactly have the new guy all the time to attract new players, but we still have plenty to pull from that we just haven't been able to do so yet. Cyber Sleuth probably does the best at balancing that I know of, having a good selection of Digimon from having the obvious nostalgia picks, which most of the games do, and other Digimon that most people aren't super knowledgeable about, so that you, viewer of this content, can actually explore at your own liking via the Digivolution system of the game, which allows you to go up and down in levels. If you get an evolution you're not quite so sure about, you can go down and then try to pick a new evolution line, basically, as soon as you reach the requirements again. It's such a great system for both old and new fans that I always try to recommend it, especially Hacker's Memory, which is one of my top favorites of all time. But every time I do recommend it, I always have to fight the urge of going, but if you want more Digimon in your Digimon game, you should be looking into the modding scene, especially this mod, who includes a bunch of them, to a new player. This one has just kind of been swimming in my brain for the past year since I first picked up Digimon World Next Order, which is kind of the newish game in the series. Survive I don't really count, it's like a whole different thing. It's a visual novel using Digimon as a background for the story and gameplay, so it comes with way different expectations, and it would be a game I recommend to players looking for a Digimon story specifically, since it is a visual novel. There's also a bunch of gacha games that haven't come out of Asia ever. I think I've heard a lot about the Chinese-only mobile game specifically, and I don't really want to count them because I can't let myself count gacha for fucking anything, so yeah. So, going back to Next Order, what do you think the newest and hip cool game that Digimon got in 2017, worldwide? How many Digimon do you think it could have? 232. That's right, it got 232. It is lower again! I understand that in a creature raising game, you'd want to keep the number lower overall, as opposed to an RPG, where you have 9 different guys going up and down. In Next Order, you only have 2 Digimons alive, but come on, I really wanted to love the game so bad. It does so many things right for me, but the number of Digimon, especially the recolors used all the time, just makes me really angry and makes me think the game's really ass, when it really isn't. Lightning round off the dome. Let's see here. We got Agumon, Black Agumon, and Snow Agumon. We got Gabumon, Black Gabumon, and Psychemon. We got Garurumon, Black Garurumon, and Gururumon. We got Vidramon, Vidramon Red, Vidramon Gold. We've got Halurimon and Palmon. We got Pidmon, Enjamon. We've got Toyagumon, Clear Agumon, Toyagumon Black. I literally did not have any of these written down. I just put in parentheses in my script, I believe in me to do this in recording, and here we are. It feels like such a simple fix. Like, instead of all the Vidramon recolors, we could easily been replaced by other champion level Dragon Digimons instead, like Airdramon, Corjamon, Ginryumon. Like, for fuck's sake, we have Hawkmon in the game with Jesmon, but it's missing Bao Hawkmon and Savior Hawkmon for some reason. Like, come on. I'd love to recommend the game to someone who really wants to experience what the core of Digimon is. It is a raising game, after all, like the Tamagotchis, but I really don't think that the game with 3 Vidramon of different color is convincing anyone to give it a shot. Because it's the way of the creature-raising subgenre. It's caring and forming bonds with your creatures that you encounter and raise, but instead, to me, seeing the same creature with a different color or different tint or 2 wings instead of 6, it's not making me care a whole lot. It's me thinking, damn, we couldn't get anything else instead? I know Digimon can be for everyone who really wants a different kind of monster taming game than everything else can provide, but the games feels like they can't or don't want to put their best foot forward because it can't get more than a third of the total creature it currently has into a single game. But even if the total Digimon count is inflated by something like X antibody variants or other such variants, if we're being really generous here and say half of the total Digimons are variants of each other, then the game still struggled to have half of its available roster into a single game. Time Changer has been announced recently, and I'm really excited about the game, and I cannot wait to be annoying as fuck to the people I talk to online. But I beg you, please, let the game reach around 500 Digimon within the game, and if it does, I'll be so happy to shill it until people, eyes and ears just bleed or they pick up the game to try it. It feels like I'm asking for a lot, but I also feel like I'm not. It's really weird. 500 out of 1,500 feels like it's very little overall. But it's also a tricky paradox because I really don't know if the coding would or would not allow for it. The one thing I do know is because of the time it took for the game to be even released, it's been in development hell for just about 8 years, it will probably not include the peak that is the Liberator Digimon lines. Oh my god, please, if at all possible, I would really love a DLC of some kind that does include them. I would pay for any amount of money just to get these guys into a game. I really do fear what I have created here, because I really love Digimon. I want people to try Digimon, and I'm also pretty good about being annoying as fuck about Cyber Sleuth. And I get that all I said here maybe is a little dissuading to people wanting to try out the series through the video games, which are the lowest investment way to begin. But don't let an old man yelling at clouds stop you. There's also just a ton of other ways to get into the game. I've already mentioned before that the TCG is my personal favorite, and I get how it can be really scary to get into a TCG, especially one whose prices has been really fluctuant lately in terms of what you can and cannot buy with certain amount of money. But there's this really cool underground thing called the fan-made autosim that can get you to try the game for free before actually purchasing some actual cardboard of the game. Shout out to Ryudamon and Oryumon, I love you, my son. I got more though. If you're interested in the raising and battling aspect, with a little adventure, there's tons of fan games, but I feel like this one is probably the cream of the crop. Digital Tamers 2 currently has not exactly the number I want to see in Digimon games, but it's being updated slowly but surely, and it says on the itch.io page that it's currently sitting at 380, but with the recent update, it's more like over 400 now, for sure. The creator of it, DragonRod342, has made a previous version that's honestly not a bad start either, called Digimon Tamers Reborn. I like it a little less, but it did end up at around over 500 Digimon, according to the itch page, which is the number I do like to see from Digimon games. So I truly believe that going forward, Digimon Tamers 2 can eventually reach that number given time. Anyway, the game's pretty fun. You might need to pull out a guide sometimes for a couple of the quests, and I personally have been having a lot of fun actually playing it on my phone recently, due to all the medicines I have to take and all that every morning and evening. Just like the World Series, it is a Digimon racing game, so the battles are mostly automated with the Digimon moving and acting on its own, but you can give it some command to attack and use its special attack. So if that sounds a little scary and not very fun to you, there's one more shout out I want to mention here, because I saw a bunch of people say it did great for them in terms of introducing them to Digimon. So I'm sorry I lied, but let's talk about Pokemon again. But it is a hack this time. Digimon Nova Red is the main one I've seen. It's a Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green hack, where instead of playing and capturing as the Pokemon, you're doing that with Digimon instead. It's not a super fancy Pokemon hack, but it's got a neat Digimon selection with 355, and even gives a bunch of the Digimon their signature move in addition to the usual Pokemon moveset. So if Pokemon gameplay is more of your speed, it is a better start than not starting at all. It does like some of the Digimon uniqueness, but it's not exactly everyone who's looking for that sort of thing. The creator Gwynzeg Wick, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, also made a emerald and crystal versions of the hack, so if you do prefer your Johto or Hoenn overall, you can pick them up as well, or instead of it. I don't really know about them much otherwise. Hi, welcome to the outro. It's a new day, and I've just finished editing the video all together, and thanks for watching if you made it this far, actually, just legit. I really appreciate that anybody really gives a shit about what I have to say, even though it's quite rambly and I can't speak so well, is what I learned during editing. But yeah, just wanted to say thank you, and I'll try to make another script eventually and record it, because this is the first one that I finished scripting and then recorded, actually, going through even editing. So honestly, let me know what you thought in the comments. I really would like some secondhand opinions on how the whole video turned out, and whether or not I should try to pursue more scripts like that rather than my usual dog shit videos. Alright, thank you. Goodbye.